I know. We're talking yet again about the Australian trade deal. But remember, I did about 10 plus videos on just how bad different aspects of the Japan deal actually were. And just like the Japan deal, when this full trade deal gets released, I'm probably going to end up making even more videos about this Australian trade deal because trust me, this is going to be something which becomes an absolute feature of our future trade deals and is going to hurt our economy in so many ways. We've already talked before about how the fact giving away completely tariff-free access to Australian beef has already led to the Canadians also demanding the exact same thing. These things set precedents, and these are incredibly worrying. But the thing that we are talking about today in the Japan deal, or not Japan deal, the Australian deal, is the fact that there is an incredible worry is that there could be a system of secret courts built into this trade deal. This would mean that an Australian company, maybe, for example, an Australian meat company, could maybe say, when this deal comes into signing, could say, send a consignment of beef that isn't up to, shall we say, our standards. We deny it and not allow it to be sold in this country. What then they would do is simply this. They would take our government to court over these regulations, saying that these are unfair regulations and practices and that they should be allowed to do so. And here's the thing, they could potentially win. We have seen multiple times in other different trade deals, other sectors where this has happened. So this idea that the Brexiteers always say that, oh, the farmers are worried about nothing because we have these regulations in place. No, they're not safe. Because of this court system that could very well be in this deal, we could kiss goodbye to all those safety regulations that protect our high food standards. So before we jump into today to talk about that, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And also down below there is a link to my Patreon page as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. We almost got to the end there. Thank you very much to all those people who do support me that way. So this comes from The Observer. The title is The Alarm at Secret Court Scheme in the UK-Australian Trade Deal. A free trade deal between the UK and Australia is on course to include a controversial system of secret courts that will allow businesses to seek compensation if their profits are hit by government policies. In a move that has alarmed trade unions and anti-poverty campaigners, Trade Minister Greg Hans said that the UK negotiators were in talks with the Australian officials over the proposals to include a scheme that will arbitrate disputes behind closed doors. It is understood that the UK plans to announce the framework for the deal with Australia before the G7 summit begins on the 11th of June, after Prime Minister Boris Johnson has invited Australian counterpart Scott Morrison to the event in Cornwall. Trade Secretary Liz Truss said last week that the deal would be, in quote, the best interests of the UK economy and its exporters and would benefit from unfettered access to Australian markets. Again, what type of access are we necessarily talking about? This doesn't seem to be very good, and the fact that we are giving away full tariff access in the area of agriculture, what also are we giving away as well? Like I say, this does not necessarily sound like the best idea. So, until now, the most controversial element of the proposed deal has been the plan to scrap tariffs and quotas on Australian agricultural products, including sheep and beef coming into the UK, undercutting British farmers. The decision to include the, quote, Investor State Dispute System, or the IDS scheme, which allows firms to sue governments when they believe policies have left them out of pocket, could spark even more protests. An IDS system is a system of private courts convened in camera by and arbitrated by judges, allowing firms to bypass domestic civil courts. They were originally conceived by Western multinationals to protect them against the seizure of assets in the aftermath of a coup by rogue states. For example, a mine being nationalised without reasonable compensation. In recent decades, however, they have evolved to include indirect expatriation, by which any government measure that affects the actual or expected profits of a business can be challenged. Recent IDS cases brought against governments include the Swedish energy firm Vattenfall suing Germany for policies that cut water pollution. US drugs giant Eli Lilly suing Canada for trying to reduce medicine prices, and French multinational Volonga suing Egypt for increasing its national minimum wage. So you can see this could have huge, huge impacts. Mainly, you look at those two areas where you've got the Swedish company for suing policies that cut water pollution, and of course the US company suing Canada for trying to reduce medicine prices. Those should be incredibly worrying because, as we said at the beginning, this trade deal will set precedents. So it's very likely that the other deals that we will sign in the future will have these IDS boards in place, which could mean that all these regulations that we take, we really do take for granted, could be gone in a snap, just like that. And as I've said before, if you're a Brexiteer and you've been complaining for years about the European Court of Justice doing all these quote-unquote terrible things, then congratulations, because this Brexiteer government is signing sovereignty over to places like Canberra in Australia and other various countries, so they now can absolutely strike down regulations and laws made in the UK because they affect the profits of a company in Australia. I do hope you will keep the same ideology that you had when you were campaigning voraciously against the European Court of Justice, but I somehow highly suspect that you won't. So, Shadow Trade Minister Emily Thornblue said, "It would be deeply worrying if the government is trying to use the very first post-Brexit trade agreement written from scratch to hand major corporations power to challenge regulations that affect their profits, restricting our ability as a country to introduce new laws to protect the environment, public health and the rights of workers and consumers. It is yet another reason why this proposed trade deal needs proper scrutiny and debate, rather than being rushed through in secret for a signing ceremony at the G7. Nick Dallen, the director of the Global Justice Now, said the Australian company behind the planned coal mine in Cumbria could sue the government for halting or delaying the project for environmental reasons. Right now, the Dutch government is being sued in these courts for daring to phase out coal power, and as we know, fossil fuel companies will not hold back, he said. The EU planned to include an IDS in a free trade deal with the US during talks it started with President Barack Obama, but it was forced to drop the measure after a series of marches and protests across the continent. In 2017, the Transatlantic and Investment Partnership, known as the TTIP, was put on ice. Asked in Parliament about the IDS in the Australian trade deal, Hans said, "It's a live negotiation. There will be a chapter on investment, and there are huge investors in each other's markets. I would remind the House that the UK has never lost an IDS case. Yet." Darren said that Greg Hans confirmed our worst fears, that just as most countries are moving away from this toxic corporate court system, the British government wants to turbocharge it. These courts would allow Australian companies to exact eye-watering payouts from the government for taking action on anything from climate change to workers' rights and tying the hands of governments for generations or more. Nick Cook, the head of the international relations at Unison, said the Australia already knows what IDS actually means. Tobacco giant Phil Mollison tried to sue Australia after it sought to pass plain packaging legislation to protect public health. Although Australia eventually won, it cost the Australian taxpayer a whopping $24 million fighting the case to fight in private investment tribunals. So as you can see, that is what we can expect in the future. Ultimately, that coal mine in Cumbria is again being done by an Australian company. They will absolutely take the government to court, and they could extract an absolutely eye-watering amount. Not only that, if the government is claiming that it wants to move towards a green, more prosperous future, then any more regulations could also result in that company with the coal mine suing the government yet again, extracting yet more British taxpayer money. Not only that, but these, as we said with the meat industry, could very, very easily target those and remove those legislations, and again extract a massive eye-watering amount of money from the UK taxpayer. These systems are incredibly bad, and as was said there, once we sign this trade deal, it is not going to be easy to get out of. And more worryingly, this can set on a very deadly precedent that these systems could go into other future trade deals, especially since the Brexiteers are so eager to try and sign one with America. And as we saw there, pharmaceutical companies in America are suing Canada for trying to lower the prices of medicines. This could cause huge pressure on our NHS, causing them to have to, buy drug prices where they're already inflated by about 300%. And again, I have to ask the question, is this really the Brexit that you voted for? I doubt it very much is, because again, you guys complained about sovereignty non-stop. Well, congratulations, guys, because this trade deal pretty much hands your sovereignty over to Australian corporations, meaning that they could get rid of workers' rights, regulations, all sorts of stuff that could tie our government hands for generations. So, with that said, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.